everybody. Welcome to episode 28 of the News Just News Weekly Roundup. I'm going to be your host for today. My name is Lucia, and I am once again joined by the wonderful Anna. Hello, Anna.
Hi, guys.
And the amazing Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hello.
So, as usual, you can read all the stories that we're going to be talking about today on our website. So, please head to newsjustnews.com. You'll find entertainment stories, sports stories, politics, anything you'd like. Today, we have, I would say, more of like an entertainment podcast for the day. So, we are going to start with a TV show that has just been renewed for season 2. Would you like to tell us more about that, Anna, please?
Yes, of course. So we've recently got a new TV show called The Testaments, and that is essentially based on, obviously, the original 2019 novel by Margaret Atwood, The Testaments, but in relation to The Handmaid's Tale, which we all know about. And The Handmaid's Tale was a huge success, and they're now making a version that focuses less on the handmaids, but more on the younger generation that's raised in Gilead's system. So it's essentially set in Aunt Lydia's elite school for future wives. So it kind of goes on the other way of it. We're not the handmaids anymore. It's now the more elite people, but the oppression that they still face, just in different manners and ways. And it's been a massive success thus far. It's reached 45 million streaming hours across Hulu and Disney Plus since its first debut. I loved it. I don't know if you guys have watched it yet, but it was so good. I mean, I had my doubts at first reading the book. I didn't know how they would be able to pull it off, but they did. And it's now being renewed for a season 2. And that's so exciting. And the producer, Warren Littlefield, he suggests that there's probably going to be multiple seasons. So I'm predicting that it's going to have the same amount of success that Handmaid's Tale did have. And what's great as well is that we have Elizabeth Moss, who does make a few cameos in The Testaments, as June Osborne, of course, because she plays the mother of the main character in The Testaments, Agnes, who is played by Chase Infinity. So, yeah, it's wonderful, it's brilliant, it's incredible, and I would highly suggest you watch it. And hopefully, we haven't gotten a date yet as to when it will be out, but the rumors are that they're going to start filming very soon, and it could be out mid-2027. So it's very exciting.
That's quite good news. I have to say, I did not know about the show. Obviously, I do know The Handmaid's Tale, even though I've never watched that either. And I know it's something that I really need to, watch because it was quite famous. But I didn't hear about this one. And it's very nice to see that this, universe is getting extended to follow like all the stories within the same universe, within the same setting. Have you seen this one, Adam, or have you seen the Handmaid's Tale at all?
So I've seen like loads and loads of clips from The Handmaid's Tale. I think it does look like such a good show. It's one of them I've just not got around to like properly watching it. But I don't know. I think with this, I think it's so interesting, especially with The Testaments, how, like, I guess the TV show, obviously, The Handmaid's Tale, like, came out so long afterwards. It was like 20, I don't know, but it came out so long afterwards. And then that, because of the success of that, it made her write The Testaments, this sequel. And so the fact that it's still going on now, Anna, you just said you didn't know how the TV show was going to pull it off, but like the fact that she can come back, I think like for almost 40 years or like 30 plus years after, continue the story, and now especially with season 2 as well with this, I think like that is a testament to how good it is.
Yeah, isn't it interesting as well that it's a show, obviously a book before that was set in kind of like a dystopian setting and universe, but because it was written like a long time ago, now that audiences are finally getting to know it more through the TV shows, it feels more like it could have been literally just written, being written now, because it's such, unfortunately, such a reality that could be very well close to our reality. So it's a sad one, but also quite an interesting thing. And yeah, I'm really curious to watch this show and to see how it's going to develop at this point, because I feel like it could be, like you said, like a huge success. And as the show is getting renewed, we are saying goodbye to another big show that we have talked about on this podcast before, and that is obviously Euphoria. We are going to discuss a little bit about the finale that just aired last week. So if you haven't watched up until this point, please just skip ahead and skip this segment of the video, because there's going to be spoilers. So we have seen the ending. I know, Anna, you're a big fan. Well, Adam hasn't watched it yet, but I'm sure that you've seen a bit at least around, because it's been so big that like everyone's been talking about it. So obviously we did see in episode 7 already, so the second to last, that we had a major death, and that was Nate. So the character played by Jacopo Elordi, and his death was quite shocking, not only with the fact that it happened, but also how it happened. Like, he was literally buried alive over unpaid debts, and then he was killed by the bite of a rattlesnake. So if you are scared of snakes, that's not an episode you should be watching. It was very terrifying, and I'm not scared of snakes. Obviously, I say that, but then, I've never encountered a snake. But yeah, it was very, very, it's very scary. And then in this one last episode, we saw another major death happening, and that was Zendaya's character, Rue, which we could argue was the main actor, the main character, protagonist of the show. She obviously, over the course of the 30 odd episodes of the whole series, we've seen her struggling with addiction and getting clean and then relapsing again. So it's always been kind of like a quite hard direction that the character was always taking throughout the seasons. And in this last season, she was finally getting clean, and then basically she just dies because of fentanyl laced Percocet pills. So it's basically something that she does not decide for herself, but she gets basically killed off by someone else, and that is the villain of the season, which is Alamo, and he's a kind of like a mob crime boss, and he finds out that she was collaborating with the DEA, and so he gives her these pills that she thinks are just painkillers, and that she just dies while kind of like hallucinating. And this last bit was quite touching. I found it quite emotional, because basically, as she's, passed out and passing away, she sees like a younger version of herself. She sees her mom once again, with which she had kind of like a strained relationship because of her addiction. And she sees Jules, her ex-girlfriend, played by Hunter Schafer. And then there's a huge like emotional tribute at the end, because we see her finally reuniting with Fez. And Fez was this like big-hearted drug dealer character from season 1 and 2, played by Angus Cloud. Cloud died between the filming of season 2 and 3, so obviously his character was not featured in the latest season, but he was in prison, according to the story. And Rue imagines him just like escaping from prison and then reuniting with him. And for that specific scene, I thought it was really nice and really touching, because Sam Levinson used unseen footage that he shot in the previous years with Zendaya and Angus Cloud. So I thought it was a really good way to just like wrap up the show and paying homage to this character, which was a very good character in my opinion, and unfortunately not completely developed because of what happened. So this was like the major thing that happened, and there was something that shocked the fans, but I feel like it was also kind of expected. Like, a lot of fans were expecting that to happen. And it's quite a sad ending, not only for Rue, but we see all of the other characters basically ending up in a place that's not exactly what maybe, you know, that they were expecting when they were in high school in season 1 and 2. So we have Cassie is obviously now a widow after Nate's death. So she uses this insane big mansion that she has to kind of like create boarding house, you know, for influencers and OnlyFans creators. Her sister Lexi basically, you know, leaves her sister's life. She's completely unaware of what happened to Nate, and she just decides to just step away and continue her life somewhere else. And then we have Maddie. After everything that's been going on between Maddie and Cassie, the two kind of like reconcile, but Maddie's just very, you know, she's used as a sex worker throughout season 3 by Alamo, so the villain of the season, and then she is quite, you know, traumatized and she leaves the scene, and we kind of not know what happens after. So it's a very you know, sad ending, but I feel like it's a fitting ending for a show that was, you know, meant to be shocking audiences since season 1. So yeah, this is my, you know, breakthrough, my, you know, description of what happened. So Anna, what did you think about the finale?
So many thoughts. I'm going to try not to speak too long. You know, I've been thinking about it so much, and with the endings of all of the characters, some I was really unsatisfied with. I didn't see, you know, like for Jules, for example, there was no character development in this season. There was no really ending for her besides the painting she makes of Rue at the end. But I went into the season rooting for Maddie and Rue. And I'm just, I mean, listen, the way I kind of view this is it's an ending that maybe the fans were sad about, but it's a realistic one. And considering everything that was going on and happening, I think this, you know, these outcomes were going to happen. I mean, we had people involved in gangs, people involved in, you know, with Nate dying, and, you know, but the most touching part was definitely Rue's scene when she's dying, and it's just such a beautiful montage. When they say when you're dying, you see the last 7 minutes of the most important parts of your life and everything. So all of those people that she sees, it's just beautiful. At one point when I was watching it, I wasn't sure. I didn't know she was actually dying. I thought she was high. I thought she maybe had relapsed. And I thought she had actually gone to see her mom. And there was that scene when she, you know, and it was all very confusing. And then you realize, oh my word, that wasn't true. You know, the painkillers were laced. And it's just so sad to think as well, especially with the fact that she was clean and she was taking those painkillers because she needed them, not to get high, but for actual pain. So it makes me sad as well to think about how, you know, I mean, I'm thinking very much parasocially in the show, like how the other characters would have thought. Maybe they thought she relapsed. Maybe her mom thought she relapsed, but in reality, she didn't. And that's what broke my heart a lot, was that, you know, there was actually so much hope coming for her. She had a whole like religious journey thing, and she's clean and this, and I was really hoping, but so that was shocking. I mean, yeah, but I think it was the perfect way to end it, because again, it's realistic. And so the tribute to Angus Cloud, I mean, I was crying, sobbing my eyes out, and yeah, I think it was just a great way to wrap up the show. I think some of the earlier episodes I was not so impressed, but the final episode, cherry on top, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I feel like the choice, obviously, of, you know, stepping up to a context in which they're more adults and getting away from high school was already an ambitious one, but because they took that step, then they had to create a situation that was as realistic as possible. And because the stakes were really high, this was probably the best way to wrap it all up, by, you know, creating something that was at least faithful to the tone that the season took. And Adam, now that you know everything about the ending, would you still consider watching it? Are you someone who watches the show even though, if you don't care about spoilers and even though you know the ending, would you still watch it?
Yeah, I don't mind about spoilers too much. Like, even hearing these spoilers, I'm still just like, what is this show about? It's like everything that I hear is just completely ridiculous and crazy. And yeah, I was thinking, like, obviously I was reading the article on News Just News, going through, and like I was like, how is this arc? Like, it sounds, I don't know, it almost sounds like they got like every character, you were saying they didn't have like that perfect happy ending, but then I, knowing what I know about the actual plot, it's like, oh well, maybe it does make sense, because you don't want, I guess it's sort of you don't want to have that thing of kids doing drugs and getting into gangs and then they all live happily ever after, because that's that's just not true, and you probably shouldn't be telling kids that. But yeah, would I watch it? If it's on.
That's fine.
Watch it.
I mean, season 1 I thought was quite special. It was very shocking, but it was just something completely different from everything you've ever seen. And I think that's what made Euphoria like a really strong TV show. It was the fact that you've seen a lot of shows set in high school, but this was just very out of whack, just like completely random. So once again, you can find all of these stories that we're talking about on our website. So please head to News Just News. And we are still talking about entertainment for now. There was a new interview that was released with Cynthia Erivo. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Wicked and about Cynthia and Ariana Grande on this podcast, and now there's a new development. So Anna, would you like to tell us more?
Yes. I'll go through it very briefly, but it is something very important to talk about. Essentially, Cynthia Erivo did an interview with Variety, and she talked about, I guess she's kind of detached herself from Wicked a lot, and the reasons behind that. And one of those big reasons was the Singapore premiere of Wicked 2, when Ariana Grande was attacked by that stalker. His name is Johnson Wynn, and he did go to prison for 9 days after that, but he's been known infamously for stalking celebrities and going up on stages with many, many artists. And yeah, so basically what happened in that premiere, if you guys didn't see it, was that he went over the barricade and grabbed Ariana. And it was, as Cynthia Erivo described it, obviously a terrifying situation. And from her perspective, what had happened is that the bodyguards did not get there fast enough. They didn't, and her immediate reaction was to just do something about it and help her, because obviously they formed a bond over the years. And she was amazing. She was essentially the one who detached the stalker from Ariana. And I think it was a beautiful moment that kind of showed their friendship. But online, it became this horrible, hateful, racist kind of narrative that was spread around. And people were portraying Cynthia Erivo as, a hyper-masculized creature almost, and was made fun of just for protecting Ariana. And it was terrible, I think. And then we have a quote from Cynthia who essentially said, "We haven't really come to terms with the insidious nature of how we view Black women." And in response to that, also saying, if this were to happen the other way around, if the stalker were to have grabbed Cynthia and not Ariana, and if Ariana was the one to protect her, it wouldn't have really been the same reaction. So she kind of talked about how a lot of this narrative was rooted in a lot of racism and misogynism, and there was so much going around with their relationship and everything. And now we've seen they've almost detached from each other. And now Cynthia Erivo has kind of been discouraged. She's discouraged in attending any future Wicked press tours or anything like that, as well as Oscar campaigns, because she said it just completely traumatized her and honestly like made her question humanity nowadays. So I'm just glad we finally got her side of the story, because I think we did talk about it, but I remember seeing those memes online. It was just terrible. And I'm glad that she's pointed out, you know, the horrible nature behind these memes and everything. So yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I remember also seeing when the interview was released, there were like little snippets of videos on Twitter, and it's basically the scene where she gets given, I think it was a picture or something about Wicked, and she just refuses to address it completely, and she just like gives it back, and she's there like, we're not going there, I'm not going to talk about this. And I feel like it's obviously, yeah, we've been talking a lot about, you know, their relationship and everything that was going on. And it's a bit sad because it was quite, among everything, you know, it was quite evident how much they both cared about this project and how important it was for them, especially for Cynthia coming from like a theatre environment and a, you know, theatre career. It was very evident, yeah, how important it was for both of them, and the fact that now she's just deciding to step away from it completely and not even address it, or even if she does, you know, in a way in which she is highlighting how she's going to not talk about this. I feel it's quite sad considering how important and everything they went through and how successful it was as well. Like it could have just been, you know, a really good experience in their career, but it's shaped to be not really that way. So I think it's quite sad. So we're now going to talk about something a little bit lighter to end the podcast. And so there has been a buffalo in Bangladesh who apparently looks like someone that we all know, Donald Trump. So Adam, tell us all about it.
Yeah, of course. As you know, I adore an animal story. I will always be on it. So there's a buffalo that looks like Donald Trump. What can I say? So, in Bangladesh, the buffalo owned by Saudin Murada, basically his little brother. So he's a farmer. He had this buffalo. It's an albino buffalo as well, and its hair. It's got this blonde, coiffured comb over, and so the farmer's little brother affectionately named it Donald Trump. And this buffalo was actually, it was going to be sacrificed for Eid al-Adha. So, you know, there was a bit of, you know, talk about that. And then actually, Bangladesh's Home Ministry said last Wednesday that it has been rescued, like the person who bought it, they got a refund, and now the buffalo is going to go to Bangladesh's National Zoo in Dhaka. So the Donald Trump buffalo is saved, which is a fabulous end to the story. And obviously albino buffalo, they're quite rare. So, I mean, as with like most albino animals, they're super rare. So it's going to be preserved there, and they're going to do, you know, genetic research and stuff. So yeah, long may the Donald Trump buffalo reign.
That was a really lucky buffalo, because he got saved thanks to Donald Trump, which is not something that you say all the time. So it's a good thing.
So a race sentence.
Yeah, I really find like stories about animals that get viral online like really endearing, you know, like Moo Dang and the Punch the Monkey. We always get obsessed about these animals, and then we just follow them for a little bit, and it's always a good thing. I am surprised that I did not hear much about the buffalo, because it is a really cute buffalo, and you can see the picture if you go on our website, because it's on the article that Adam just talked about. So yeah, once again, if you would like to read more, just out there you'll find this story and many more. And that's it for today's episode. So thank you guys. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Till next time.